for the tectonics of something, to express tectonics, as if there's a this system of construction generates a sort of language, right? This is one idea within architectural discourse. So that is one kind of idea, that this sort of the tectonics of building a mosque or a temple, right? A stone temple will it creates a sort of a language of ornament, of structure, of elements, architectural elements, and this constitutes the language of so and so, or language of so and so. This is also the way we think, right? In terms of when we talk about language in or when we talk very easily about language in architecture. So this is one idea, right? um, these, you must, of course, you are aware of Peter Eisenman's work. So this is another thing. I didn't put an image of the house, but you have seen it a lot, right? First year mein dekha, but somebody who's interested in Eisenman's work, somebody wants to talk about it. Yeah. So in this, yeah, anybody, somebody is saying something. It's difficult. I understand Eisenman is difficult in terms of trying to express what he's doing. Does anybody know what the kind of experiments in House 6 or all those various houses? What he's doing? Anybody?
Uh, Hi Sonal. So I'm not sure if I know about all of the houses, but there are few houses in which he uses those two red and green staircases to create those contradictory ideas of opposition of two different colors. Uh, then in one of the museums he uses he keeps the entire scaffolding as it is, just to create the completeness and the incompleteness together. So that's what Eisenman usually works with. So because he is a deconstructivist, he uses this multiple ideas of absence and presence.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Anybody else? Deconstructivism क्या है architecture में? It was something in literature. Was it a
Yeah,
movement
it's
that came, that it's a boring? Yeah, somebody please.
Yeah, so it was so it got into it from a philosophy which got
Yeah,
converted into architectural practice, a Derridian philosophy, I'll say.
yeah, yeah. But that philosophy was obsessed with language, right? It was about
Yeah.
language and its relationship to knowledge and power.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, yeah. So he himself doesn't necessarily always use the word deconstructivism. He denies it in some place, but places. But you will see things like these as metaphors. Can you see this? You can see my cursor now, right? Now, this is him saying. So while the work was interested in syntax and grammar, it was interested to see what the analogical relationships were between language and architecture. Huh? Right? And if you I should have, okay. So deconstruction uh, is a is a sort of it is the understanding of language is embedded with in power and techniques and methods to destabilize it. If you look at Eisenman's work, you will see the work rep- represented as process. Have you seen this as operations, formal operations on a grid? All the houses are like that, like they're a grid, and then there are operations on the grid, right? You've seen this of cutting, of slicing, of splitting, of moving, right? So in some way he is operating on what can be imagined as the basis of architectural grammar, which is the Cartesian system itself, right? Which is your XYZ axis, the presumption of orthogonality, the kind of systems of measurement that have these have the idea of origin and these orthogonal directions, right? Which is an abstraction, right? It is an abstraction. It is outside the human eye. It's outside supposed human subjectivity, and it's supposed to be out there as a kind of universal system within which you can measure anything and everything, right? So he's operating on that detached language, or that detached kind of basis of all architectural language in those houses, and you will see that in it is also mirrored to what when we spoke about language in the beginning, that language has its own logic outside, right? But within that, the relationships between sounds, and the signs and the things that they signify, meaning is arbitrary, and it is based on other things, like what the way society wants to frame certain objects, or the way people in power want to frame certain objects. And language is implicated with in power, like the division between man, woman, and like what you're saying, somebody said the idea of presence and absence, that the power decides what is creates these binary oppositions, and those binary oppositions have an inequality. So in literature, there were a lot of writers who tried to destroy the very structure of language, and that is embedded with these presumptions and assumptions of power. And similarly, in what you're saying, no, that the staircase, the mirrored staircase, ulta staircase, the split bedroom, that these operations on the grid itself would displace or destroy the logic of power and hierarchies within architecture. So that is the kind of even in terms of stability, gravity, the vertical, all these things, you'll see many of his works doing that. See, Jacques was important later. In language, to separate, he said it was possible in language to separate the sign and the signifier. He's talking about Jacques Derrida, who's a very famous deconstructivist philosopher. That is the thing and its sign. This you understand, right? We have discussed this. What has made architecture interesting for post-structuralist philosophy is the architecture is about the relationship of the sign to the signifier. That the column, for instance, is the sign of the column and the column itself, or the wall is the sign of the wall and the wall itself. Okay, so there are many things. Otherwise, there in Alberti's Palazzo, there is, I refuse to say that Italian word because I will make a mess of it. It is both a grid system and a wall bearing system, which says there's a redundancy or duplication of structural systems, which means that sometimes either the grid or the wall is a wall, but it is also a sign of a wall, or the grid is the structural grid, or it is itself a sign of a structural grid. You will see this in a lot of architects' work, where certain elements are used as signs for themselves rather than for any other structural logic itself, right? That they are redundant.
Sonal, you're on mute. I think you put yourself on mute.
Okay, somebody muted me, I think.
Oh
yeah, but you can read it yourself. Yeah, this is so. These things are there. You can look at Eisenman's work also. These guys you're familiar with this, of course.
Yes, this was done in our first year.
Yeah,
I don't remember the architect,
but
the idea of the entrance was kind of played with, and the split that happens in the front and how it's different.
Mother's house.
Yeah. Right.
What else do you know?
Curious.
What else do you know about Venturi? Do you know this?
Postmodernism.
Yeah,
Actually,
okay.
it's contradicting the idea. I mean, wait. Complex. Like, he actually criticized less is more by saying that, why to go simple when you can complicate things. Where the
Yeah.
idea of house is different for someone else, but it is unique for me. Where my elements, like he uses many fake elements, like fake facade, or fake window for a sense, because it represents the type of house at that time. So why not do it?
Symbolism,
Yeah, symbolism.
or ornamentation
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of looked down upon in modern philosophy. He's saying why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So exactly, very correctly that this kind of removal of the symbol in modern architecture, like this pure function, pure element. There's some idea of minimal, the expressive, functional expression rather than traditional symbolic, expression that existed in history, but also maybe in popular culture as well. This is like a typical suburban house type that is dismantled and its various elements are taken up, enlarged, played around with.
How a 5-year-old would draw when told to draw a house, I think is
Yeah.
what he said somewhere.
Yeah. So this the kind of universal house in some way. Nah? Yeah. This work, anybody seen? You know this person? Do you know her? You have to know her. If you know Venturi, you have to know her. It is a very sad kind of world we live in which this woman's not given a Pritzker while Venturi was. This is his partner, Denise Scott Brown. They have, so the firm is actually called Venturi and Scott Brown. So this is Denise Scott Brown. And this book, you guys must have seen. Have you seen this in the library? This? Anybody? Acha, do you recognize these things?
Is it a consumeristic something related to consumerism?
Yeah, okay. Which place? Yes, very much. Which place?
I don't remember that.
This anybody? Caesar's Palace. Where is
Las
it?
Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vegas.
Yeah, these are names of casinos, right? Or hotels.
Yeah, the
Casino
hotel.
hotel. Yeah, very much. So this is a very famous book called Learning from Las Vegas. And the book, you can see it creates, is a study of the sort of architectural language or an urban language of the city of the Las Vegas Strip. Huh? So it is, so it creates these sort of drawings, you know, photographs. If you could see what the panorama is like, what the front is like, what the side is like, parts are like. There are sectional drawings. There are uh, solid what do you call built unbuilt drawings of the thing, and they are trying to understand what is the architectural language of this kind of crazy consumerist paradise that everybody loves, right? That is like the pinnacle of a fantasy city, like the idea of a fantasy city to most of America, right? What is it composed of? So this is also in some way the trying to understand an idea of an architectural language and trying to codify its elements and grammar. Yeah. So this is one experiment. So there's just some three. The third one is this idea of the third example is this idea of walking or everyday practices as colloquial practices of space. This is of course Michel de Certeau, who talks about planning, being the sort of rigid language of allocating meaning and embedded in power, allocating meaning to certain spaces, the way they should be used, the way they should be lived, and on it and superimposing on it this or valorizing in it this space of the everyday where people do go against the rule or create a space around their own bodies, individual practices of walking, taking shortcuts, or whatever you do in your everyday life being something that doesn't necessarily always follow the grid but can also disturb it or go against it. So this is another way, another idea. Another idea that he also talks about is that that the way, uh, although spatial practice may not constitute a language, but you can imagine them as figures of speech, like in a synecdoche, like in a garden, you create an idea of nature for yourself, right? In a small part, like, but it is a fragment. Synecdoche, it's like a part for a whole where a rose will kind of signify something larger. Then there is irony or inversions. Irony, everybody is familiar with that. When you turn the meaning of a space, like this is a church for a wedding, or this is a monument turned into a minuscule thing. These are practices that we do in our everyday lives. This is a very famous garden by Derek Jarman, who was a homosexual filmmaker and activist. Very beautiful space, but he created a garden at the edge of a thermonuclear plant, in a barren landscape without boundaries, collecting things that he found on the beach, all wasted objects, plastic slippers, driftwood, all the things that you don't necessarily put in English gardens, such as weeds or bushes or wild stuff, and he makes his garden out of that. So like this, the kind of inversion of the idea of this perfect garden as this sort of queered and like a garden that admits and celebrates things that are rejected. Yeah, so these are the kind of things that we put, but all of y'all are now each one of y'all has to make one slide of an example of a language as a space or architecture, or language in space and architecture. Rutika, Aishu, if you want to explain it a little clearer, because I think we're out of time, so I rushed also a little bit. But something are there any questions about the assignment? Everyone makes one slide.
Yeah, everyone makes one slide, and in that slide, maybe you can put image, you can put a clip, you can put. I think the mode is up to them, right, Sonal? Or do we want to even specify that?
No, they're free to put, but you just have to write about it. Yeah, write about it and put something on it. And about whatever you put on the slide. So it can be anything. It can be about the idea of vocabulary. It can be about, like I showed you, I think we showed you 4 examples of the way language is imagined as, spatial practice, or as, urban form, or in architecture. Maybe there are other things also, terminologies, etc. that can come in. I'm not sure, but I think that is the assignment. Depending on all, I'm sure all of you all will have different ideas, but that's all. It's a small assignment.
Yeah, true.
Aishu, Rutika, anything else? Any questions?
No, nothing. I think this is defines it all. And I'm sure everyone is aware about an architectural language. Like this now permutations and combinations of that, and how you kind of look at structure versus ornamentation versus, and a lot of other things as well. So what is represented, what is the actual, what is real, how does it behave? Is it set within a larger context? What is that context like? So all these things come into play.
Okay, guys.
So it is necessary have to be an related to architecture, or it can be a painting or the art also?
No, architecture.
It has to be architecture.
Architecture, space and architecture. If you want to talk about, some idea of spatial representation in the painting, then yes, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, like there are a lot of artists who deals with this whole aspect of spatiality, and even they actually also have this representation of language and space and image, and so there can be that also.
But something more
Yeah.
direct will be better, huh? Like something direct, like if the use of photographs and paintings, of course, is fine, but as long as you're discussing some concept within architectural discourse, or yeah, that's it, huh?
Yeah.
Any other
Yeah.
questions?
Okay.
So, Sonal, they'll submit it in the tab, or how we do that?
If somebody can make a Google slide, this, or you can put it within this, I'll share this. But I think it's better to have a fresh one, na?
Yeah, I think they can create their own Google slide, the Google presentation, and then when they are done in the next class, they can share that with us.
Yeah, will you guys do that? Then we'll just take a look. We can give comments on that, etc., and we'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Chalo,
So we meet next time, guys. Bye. Bye.